Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Mental Health Minute. We're excited to have Karen Endres and Jess Beauchamp with us. We're going to talk a little bit about resources that are available through the Wisconsin Farm Center at the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, and how Jess helps with those services. So we're going to start with introductions. I'll toss it over to Karen to get started.
Great. Thank you, Wendy. Like she said, I'm Karen Endres. I am the Farmer Wellness Program Coordinator in the Wisconsin Farm Center at the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. I get the lucky job of working with farmers every day, connecting them to resources that can help them with their emotional health. As a person who's married to a dairy farmer, I get this firsthand. And our days can be really challenging, full of a lot of stress. And we're always good at taking on more and working harder, and sometimes not even taking care of our physical health. That comes low on the list, and our emotional health usually comes even a little bit lower. So I'm really looking forward to talking to you today about the programs that we offer.
And I'm Jessica Beauchamp. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a substance use specialist here in Wisconsin. And I contract with the Farm Center to actually work within some of these programs that Karen is going to talk about.
All right,
Great.
thank you. Oh, sorry, Karen. I'm going to have Karen talk about the programs available through the Farm Center. There are quite a few that are open. So Karen, if you want to talk about those programs, and then also who is eligible to utilize those.
Great. So our programs are funded through the Wisconsin legislature and Governor Tony Evers. And I really want to say that they are available to all Wisconsin farmers and their families. So that's a really broad group, and it's such a nice service to have, because oftentimes we have our own health insurance, and sometimes mental health services are not covered in those, or the coverage isn't very good. So these programs really give farmers access. And we found out that's one of the challenges, is just accessibility of mental health programs. So our programs all try to hit something that will make it easier for farmers. So we have 4 main programs, one of those being counseling vouchers. That's probably our most well-known program. And that program issues vouchers to farmers or family members that they can take to a local provider that's in our network and have that in-person counseling session. But what's changed after the pandemic is more and more telehealth became available, and more of us got comfortable with it. So although during the pandemic we developed telecounseling, and that's where Jess fits into our programs, a lot of our other counselors do that as well. So the really great thing about our telecounseling program with Jess, as well as our counseling vouchers, is we can find providers that understand farming, can relate and understand that whole culture that we live and work in, and really help a farmer with maybe the issue that they're dealing with. It might be anxiety, it might be depression, it might be substance use. And we can really target and get a provider that's a good fit for them. Another one of our programs is our online farmer support group, and Jess helps with that one as well. That meets in our off-peak months of farming. So November through April, that meets twice a month. In our peak farm months, we drop that to once a month, and that's the 4th Monday of every month. We like to limit it to about 8 to 10 farmers on that Zoom meeting, but that is a great group to come in and have that community. Other farmers talking to farmers, talking about relationships, talking about maybe substance use on the farm, talking about the daily stressors that they're facing. So that's another great service. And then we can't forget about our 24/7 line that connects farmers to that in the moment stress counselor. So it is 2 a.m. and you can't sleep because you are overstressed from the milk prices dropping. You don't know if you're going to be able to pay your bills. You have, we're going into spring, right? You got to get fuel and seed and fertilizer, and it's all piling on. You can call that number and be connected to someone immediately that will be able to talk to you about it. And sometimes that's all it takes, is a conversation to just let you know you're not alone and get you in a better state of mind.
So can we talk a little bit about how Jess fits into the program and how you would get connected with her?
Absolutely. So if someone calls me or they call the 24/7 line and that gets sent over to me that they would like to talk to someone at a little bit more length or in detail. I then connect that to Jess and she does it either via phone or Zoom. Not everybody is comfortable on a Zoom or with that digital technology or has access to broadband that can actually take and have that video call. So she'll do a telephone call as well. But I'm going to turn it over to Jess now and let her explain, like, what is that experience like when she calls or has that first contact with a farmer or farm family member?
Sure. So it typically starts with a phone call, as Sarah, or as Karen was saying, sorry, as Karen was saying. And she lets me know, who I'm calling, a little brief introduction of what's going on. And sometimes it is a Zoom call. More than likely, it's going to be a phone call. It can be either. So we're flexible in that way, whatever a farmer is comfortable with or a farm family member is comfortable with. The first contact is usually anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. I schedule an hour just in case someone really does want to take that whole time. Some people are just wanting to get on and off real quick. And what I'm really doing is a couple different things. So I'm sort of screening, I'm listening to what's going on. Is this person comfortable, doing like Zoom sessions so they can do online telehealth? Is it someone that really connects with people in person? So maybe they need an in-person counselor. Can they go to the counselor? Do they need a counselor to come to them? Because there's so many options. And so I'm really just listening to their story and whatever they want to share, whatever they're comfortable with sharing. It could be just the immediate stressor. Sometimes it goes a little bit deeper into like almost like what's happening in the last couple of years or last couple of decades even of, usually it's not a problem that just started today. It's something that's pretty deep. And so I'm listening for those kind of things and going to make a recommendation whether or not, again, do they need to be seen in person, which means that, this kind of route that we're doing today is not going to be the best. And do they need someone to come to them or can they go to a counselor? Are they comfortable with that? Do they have the means to even do that? Is there a counselor close to them? So it's nice because we're really flexible as far as using sometimes a combination of services so that it meets the farmer's need.
Mhm.
And then
And
I,
we're really,
send it back to Karen if it's
yeah,
something that I can't do.
we're really a partnership. So I often, a farmer will have a phone call with Jess. And like she said, maybe it's a better situation for an in-person. So she'll get in touch with me. Think of it like, I like to say like a triage, when you go into the ER and you first meet with people and get a triage, and then we really try to find the best fit. So if it comes back to me, Wendy, what I look at is where are they in the state? What do we have for counselors in our program? What is their biggest need that will be helpful to them? And then I can try to make a match for them. So I do the legwork. I'll call and make sure, because oftentimes in today's world, a counselor may not be taking new patients. They may be 2 months out. And we may know this person needs to be seen very quickly, or no, they can wait. They just had some things they want to talk through and it can be a little bit longer. So I take all that into consideration, try to find someone, I make the phone calls, get the connection. So when I hand it back to the farmer or the farm family member, they know they may have two choices of someone local. And I'll say, this one has appointments within 2 weeks. This one is about a month out. This one has a male counselor. This one has a female counselor. So then they have the information that they can pick and make one or two phone calls instead of going down a long list and trying to find a match. And because I think one of the hardest things I learned early on in this role, if a farmer has made this one phone call, then that's a big step. And I don't want them to get discouraged and not want to move forward because they can't find someone to meet with them. So if I can help them and make that contact, that's great. And all of our programs are free and confidential. So we're really working on that accessibility, right? That we'll find someone that works for them, we'll cover the cost of it, we'll make sure they're available. And now all we need to do is really, try to break down that stigma. right? That it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay. Every person that I have sent off to Jess comes away that was a really comfortable conversation. And so I think that's what's really important. And if anything we can do today is just to tell people it's scary and it's unknown, but it's not, once you're in it, it's really comfortable and easy.
Something I like to tell people too is that for mental health, a lot of times people are nervous that they're going to get some diagnosis and they don't know what that means. And not everybody needs a diagnosis. Not everybody has like a diagnosable mental illness. Sometimes it's just the stress from farming, the stress from, the culture, and sometimes being isolated, or there's too many people around and they're not a people person. And so you don't need a diagnosis oftentimes, especially for calling in and just talking and saying, how do I, work through this? I'm not going to label you with something that's not necessary. Sometimes there is a diagnosis that comes along because maybe they need like a medication that goes with it as well to help manage. But yeah, Karen and I work really well together to make sure we're calling people versus them having to call her and then call me and then call somebody else. We're trying to ease that portion of it. So once they call, they know that I usually say, is it okay if Karen calls you back or emails you back? What do you prefer? Because she's going to get you connected with someone, and really trying to find who they'd be comfortable with too. Is it male or female? Is it substance use? Is it mental health? Is it something more of a stressor? All those kind of details are being done on our end to ease their seeking of services and their willingness to actually go to them. I think it helps reduce the stigma too, just because we're doing all that.
And even if a person is questioning whether they need help or not, maybe they just keep thinking, oh, it's just another bad day. It's just another bad day. You would encourage them, even if they're thinking about it, to call, correct?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I mean, if it's on their mind, I would say call, and at least sometimes it's just validation of like, yeah, this is tough. It sounds tough. If it continues, please call us back so that you can get more support. Otherwise, for some people too, that phone call is just enough to like, they get it out of their mind, right? They can continue on then. And so it could be a one phone call and done.
Yeah. And I think, that's why we do have such a wide variety of programs. Maybe they're not ready for a one-on-one conversation, but the online group is a great place for them to go. And the first time, we always say, it's okay if you don't want to turn on your screen, or maybe you just put your first name and you just kind of understand what the experience is like. But more so, I would say, as Jess talks through, she probably sees the camera comes on or the name comes across, because they realize it is a safe space to just talk about things, and then they realize they're not alone. I like to say, I think with the pandemic, we lost a lot of community, and community is so important. On our dairy farms, our milk haulers used to be part of our community, right? And now if you're shipping via a tanker, the driver comes up, he hooks up and he goes. So you don't have that chance of that 45-minute conversation of just talking about the local gossip coming down the road, and just having that outlet of connection. And even if you're a commingle load, I've been hearing they're being picked up at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And so the farmers, after the pandemic and with the changes in the industry, have just lost the people. And so with their isolation, it's so important to either check out one of these groups and just talk to other farmers. They all exchange ideas, and I'm sure I'm not on the calls, Jess is, but I'm sure sometimes they do go off to, how much rain did you get? How are your crops growing? Do you have stuff in the ground? Are people doing their first cutting of hay, or whatever's happening that time of year? Because it's nice to know what's happening with others.
Yeah. And it is a form of validation, and we don't probably use that word much, but that's what it is, right? When we're talking to the milk hauler or whatever it is, and they're talking about, the other place they picked up at, and it's like, oh, how are they doing? Like you get this information, it's validation, like, okay, I'm not far behind, or I am a little bit ahead, or I am right on track, or whatever it is. And the same thing with the support groups. Yeah, it is what has the weather been like? How are you handling that? And it doesn't have to be deep, dark secrets that are coming out. It's a lot of just how we're handling the day-to-day stuff. And yeah, like you said, the sense of community that you can lose, especially since COVID, that we've gotten things have changed a lot. So we're not having as much community, and they definitely need that.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. Again, the resources that are available through the Wisconsin Farm Center are free and confidential, so we encourage you to contact them. There will be a slide at the end of this video with all of the contact numbers. I want to thank Jess and Karen for joining us today, and we hope all of you have a great day.